General Allen. My name is Cadet Thagard, and I'm joined by Cadets Bogle and Myers. We've been tasked to analyze European refugee radicalization and generate potential candidate solutions to address this problem. This tasking was catalyzed by a series of terrorist attacks conducted in EUCOM's area of responsibility over the past several years. To effectively address this problem, several factors need to be taken into consideration. The first factor that shaped the decision-making process for these candidate solutions was who the stakeholders were. For this problem, stakeholders include EUCOM and its soldiers, refugees, the host countries and their local populations, the European Union, Turkey, terror groups, and the United Nations. Based on the salience and level of involvement of each of these stakeholders, a series of effective needs or requirements for the candidate solutions were developed.
The effective needs developed for these solutions include the following. Need 1. EUCOM needs to provide alternative messaging to that of terrorist organizations that are actively recruiting within refugee camps. Need 2. Every refugee, as well as uneducated refugees, need access to education and schools as a means to enhance their opportunities and contributions to society. Need 3. Every refugee needs access to economic markets as well as a means to financially supporting their family. Need 4. Every refugee needs access to medical care in order to keep their families and other refugees safe and allow them to take advantage of work opportunities. Need 5. Every refugee needs protection from terrorist groups, oppressive regimes, manipulative traders, and violent locals in order to allow them to live safely. Need 6. Host countries in EUCOM need the influx of migrants to decrease or become more regulated in order to better maintain security and account for refugees as well. Need 7. EUCOM needs to patrol the known avenues of approach by refugee coyotes in order to save lives during their journey to EUCOM's area of responsibility. The candidate solutions do not address all of these alone. However, each should address a minimum of at least one need. In order to satisfy the overall mission of providing a low-cost, low-risk solution to reduce the threat of refugee radicalization within EUCOM's area of responsibility while maintaining relationships with strategic allies, the candidate solutions shall address the root causes of radicalization, such as education, healthcare, and access to economic markets, or they shall address refugee influx through controlling avenues of approach, as well as minimizing refugees through enhanced border security.
With these requirements taken into consideration, dozens of candidate solutions were developed. These were then screened based off of whether EUCOM could implement the solution, whether it was possible to implement within 12 months, and whether it is politically viable. These criteria were determined because if EUCOM cannot implement the solution, it would not be viable. Implementation within 12 months will likely provide more adjustability or short-term results to be seen, and if the solution was not politically viable to the current administration or to our allies, then it would not have the opportunity to be implemented. After such screening, 3 candidate solutions were selected. This solution focuses on providing medical support to the existing healthcare system, as well as creating new medical infrastructure. This is well within the purview of EUCOM, and humanitarian assistance missions of this type have been conducted in the past. EUCOM has 3 main types of assistance they will provide pertaining to this solution. First, major standalone projects, such as renovating or constructing facilities like hospitals. 2, supplementary projects that provide medical supplies and other necessities. And third, U.S. military personnel provide medical care to the affected target populations. The total cost of this solution is estimated to be $832 million. This is largely based off of the U.S. response to the Ebola crisis, Operation United Assistance. One major difference between the 2 cases is that the risk associated with the Ebola outbreak is not present in the refugee crisis. The Army plans on purchasing 200,000 newly designed tents to house refugees. Each tent costs $1,000 and comes complete with all hardware required for assembly. The tents are able to be constructed in 4 to 8 hours by an average adult, which eliminates the need for construction personnel, helping to keep costs down. These tents are a major improvement in the living conditions that the refugees are currently experiencing. The cost of stationing soldiers overseas is a significant portion of the $832 million as well. A report by the RAND Corporation states that the cost of stationing one soldier overseas for 1 year is $40,000. If EUCOM were to provide 2,000 soldiers, similar to the Ebola response, it would cost $80 million just to maintain the soldiers once in garrison. This cost estimate does not include the transportation to and from, the cost of any equipment required, Overall, this is an acceptable solution because it falls within the capabilities of EUCOM. There is a precedent established, and the implementation is feasible.
The second candidate solution focuses on providing military assistance to refugee camp security. As evidenced in an article by Amnesty International, in many refugee camps, sexual assault, rape, and crime can flourish without a security presence. EUCOM can not only provide the soldiers to serve security and police forces within a refugee camp, but in addition, it can also help construct external protection in camps, such as fences and walls. While this may not seem as big of an issue for refugee camps, Brookings Institution reports some refugee camps are either actually on the border or are close enough to it to be exposed to clashes between the groups and constant competition for control of the region. What is more, over 100,000 Syrian civilians on the Syrian side are at great risk, having been driven from their homes and living in temporary camps extremely vulnerable to harm. Furthermore, claims that opposition fighters and smuggled weapons are moving along Turkey's borders are rather controversial and contentious. If true, this situation does not simply put Turkey's national security at risk, it also endangers the entire security of the camps, which it is claimed are used by the opposition for rest and recovery. By providing external and internal protection for the refugees, EUCOM will be able to provide a stable environment for the refugees to get their life back together and provide protection from terrorist organizations and other organizations who might be trying to use refugee camps to their own gain. The total cost for this solution is factored to be $275 million plus or minus 50 million. Part of this determination was based off Jordan's Zaatari refugee camp having a yearly cost of $5 million for security services. This cost was multiplied by 22 to account for the roughly 2 million refugees across 22 camps in EUCOM's AOR. An additional $55 million was added for yearly fixed costs of having troops stationed in these camps, as well as covering for some of the external protections built around these camps. This price point accounts for approximately 3 years' worth of security, as the resources do not have to be spread amongst every single refugee camp, and they can be divvied up amongst the rest of them, but should cover approximately 3 years' worth of security over the large majority of the camps.
The third candidate solution focuses on the refugee youth population and increasing the ability of border control agencies to prevent terrorists from entering the country as returnees. Specifically, this solution proposes the creation and implementation of mentorship programs for refugee youth and an increase in availability of iris scanner technology for use at entry points into Europe. In this proposed solution, EUCOM assists in funding and deploying new iris scan technology to border control agencies in European states that experience the highest flows of refugees. This part of the solution focuses on limiting the flow of known terrorists into Europe, which disrupts terrorist organizations' ability to influence refugees in Europe. This solution also proposes that EUCOM assists in developing mentorship programs for refugee youth that live in refugee camps in Europe. This part of the solution also limits the influence of terrorist organizations by providing messaging that counters the organization's messaging to youth. This solution has a life cycle cost estimate of $240 million based off of program costs of the FBI's current iris scan database and the Big Brother Big Sister mentorship program, with the majority of the cost coming from the creation of the iris scanner database and purchasing and implementation of iris scanner technology. This solution will have a 1-year setup phase, followed by an estimated 8 years of implementation with annual evaluations of success, and concludes with a 2-year window to adjust the solution or completely change the direction of the solution based off of the annual evaluations.
At this time, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation of our candidate solutions. It's important to note that these proposed solutions could be implemented individually or in tandem with one another, depending on the availability of funds and other resources. Moving forward, we'd like to continue by developing a model to predict the success of these solutions in a controlled environment before implementing them in reality. This modeling is dependent on any feedback that you may have regarding our proposed solutions for modification.